Hey listeners, just jumping in quickly before the podcast to notify you about the BodyTrack Academy educational webinars that we have available via Eventbrite. We cover a variety of topics ranging from oncology, musculoskeletal rehab, neurological rehab, mental health, performance and much more, all of which you can access 24/7. That means you can purchase the webinar and watch it at any time that suits you. You can claim our webinars as PD points via SS self-assessment tool, and as a valued listener of the podcast, you're entitled to $10 off any of our webinars, but do hurry because the code is only available to the first 10 purchases. Just use the code FIRST10. So head on over to Eventbrite and browse our webinars. The link is in the show notes and on the BodyTrack Academy Facebook page. I'd like to begin this podcast by acknowledging the Yagara and the Turrbal people as the traditional custodians of Meanjin, the lands on which our podcast is recorded. We pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Welcome to the BodyTrack Academy podcast created by EPs for EPs. The podcast will take you on an in-depth understanding of everything an EP is faced with on a day-to-day basis, including clinical, personal, and business practices to ensure you become the best practitioner possible. If you enjoy the podcast, make sure you like, share, follow us on whatever streaming service you use to ensure the message spreads and you are notified of any new podcasts or educational resources available to you. Furthermore, if you're not already part of our online academy, head over to Facebook and join the BodyTrack Academy. Happy listening.
Hello and welcome to the BodyTrack Academy podcast. I'm Nicole, a senior exercise physiologist here at BodyTrack, and I will be your host for today. Before I introduce today's guest, I will quickly provide a little context as to what has led to this collaboration and why we're doing this podcast series on inclusivity. It was about this time last year that our boss, Dan, did a presentation to the exercise physiology team here at BodyTrack on some of the key insights he took away from the ESSA conference. One of these included inclusive practices, and it really sparked some great positive talk around the team and particularly piqued my interest. From here, we have collectively embarked on a journey to enhance the inclusive practices at BodyTrack and ensure we really are a service for everybody. Fast forward a year, and we've made many changes, big and small, at BodyTrack, and really looking forward to future plans that we have coming up along the rest of this year. And along the way, I was really fortunate to be introduced to Tiffany and Monica at the Obesity Collective. Now, these two and their team at the Obesity Collective had been instrumental in tackling obesity stigma in Australia in multiple ways. And today I'm very lucky to be joined by Monica Garner. So welcome to the podcast, Monica.
Thank you, Nicole. Thanks for that introduction and thanks for having me on the podcast today. I'm excited.
Yes, I'm really excited to delve deeper and find out a little bit more and particularly to, I suppose, use this platform to share knowledge, share the great learnings and findings that you guys have put together with the exercise physiology community and those who listen to our podcast, as well as preach the good work and resources that you have available as well for many allied health. So ultimately, in terms of what I know about yourself, I see you're the director of True Yoga. You're a yoga teacher trainer, and you're also a project manager at the Obesity Collective. It's pretty evident that you are passionate about reducing weight stigma, both on and off the yoga mat. Yeah. And a strong believer that all body sizes deserve to move and feel good. And I just love that little phrase. I totally stole that from your LinkedIn, I think. And I would just love to hear in your words what kind of work you do in both the yoga space and at the Obesity Collective and how you ended up there.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting blend of experience that I bring to the collective, but just in general with my profession, it's very much been this sort of tone, if you will, of everything to do with training and education and seeing things from a learner perspective and always wanting to help sort of shift the way we're actually helping people with their health, whether that be through yoga or exercise physiology or what have you. So within the capacity of yoga, as a yoga teacher, I work privately with clients. I used to work in studios, but eventually I moved my model more to a private practice. So I work privately with clients. And a lot of my clients tend to be a variety of body sizes. So meeting them where they're at is absolutely crucial because many of them have gone to studios or gyms and many of those people have felt their needs are not being met, and they're not being considered based on maybe their health condition if they have one, maybe a particular disease if that's what they're experiencing, and maybe any injuries or concerns they have. So I work with those people one-on-one so they can get a more bespoke experience and those needs are factored in. It's also much easier to help an individual with their well-being when you're working with them one-on-one. As you would know very well in exercise physiology, you can really see the change and progression for that individual, as opposed to sort of a revolving door of people coming in and out of the yoga studio, let's say, because it's not always going to be the same people that you're working with in that space. So I also work with corporate clients as well, which is really exciting. And we all know corporate clients need to move and get away from the desk every now and then. So that's
Absolutely.
yeah. So that's been really rewarding in itself. And I've also had the pleasure of training and mentoring yoga teacher trainees as well, and helping to develop content and material to get them up to speed and competent in the area of anatomy, science, health and wellness, and sort of best practices within Eastern medicine, but also getting them more acquainted with sort of the Western medicine model as well, and understanding what are some of the things that are going on with people's health and well-being today. Yoga teachers are being asked more and more to actually have a more well-rounded understanding of sort of the various disease or injuries that people experience today, because we have to be able to better cater to their needs. And then from a training and development perspective, I've had an experience in HR where worked on training and development, developing e-learn modules and all the rest. And so with that together, I came and I met Tiff and decided, maybe this would add value to the collective. And on top of all that, I have my own lived experience with obesity as well. So it's bringing in all these different facets into the picture and trying to contribute in a way that can add value into this space. So yeah, it's been a really exciting journey so far. And it's really opened my eyes to a lot of different voices and opinions on the subject matter. So that's been pretty exciting.
Oh, I bet. And it's such a wealth of knowledge and experience that you bring to the team. And I love the aspects and viewpoints you already have and shared with us. And I look forward to delving more into it today. Because ultimately it looks like a lot of what is being done at the collective is trying to really shift perceptions, right, of people in the medical community, particularly allied health world too, to shift perceptions of people living with obesity, and really trying to shift this stigma to better service people and however they present to really cater to their needs, which you alluded to really nicely. And I believe that the way you are treating your clients one-on-one, it really aligns nicely with how we work in the exercise physiology space. And it really comes down to that client-centered, person-centered care, individualized. And then, from there on, we can look at other options if groups become, suitable. But really, it's an individual approach, which seems like a no-brainer, but it's just not. It's not commonly done. So tell us a little bit more about, I suppose, the reason behind the collective. How did the collective come about and what is it trying to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to share a little bit about that. So we are a peak body for obesity in Australia, and we're also a national umbrella coalition with the vision to reduce the health and well-being impacts of obesity in Australia as well. So you might have seen on our website or previous communications, really our aim is to raise awareness about the science and reality of obesity and create impact and change wherever we can on this matter. We're pretty lucky here at the collective. We have a very diverse range of perspectives and expertise on the matter. Everything from health, clinical healthcare, systems change, and lived experience. And we also work very closely with a stigma expert team, which is helping us to currently understand the current evidence and the different perspectives of weight bias and stigma. For us, we're really trying to highlight that, much like other health conditions, obesity is not a personal judgment, right? And it's not a reflection of someone's character. And from someone who has lived experience with obesity, and still to this day, I have to manage my weight and still very much struggle with that all the time. It's in no way saying that the individual, even myself, has a lack of intelligence or there's a lack of motivation going on or anything like that. That's not the case. There are other factors that are at play here. So we're really trying to educate and show the healthcare community and government and all of society that the word obesity is very much loaded with stigma, blame, and shame. I can tell you from the lived experience side of things, that definitely is the case. And there can be a hesitancy for many people in this situation to go to their GP or seek other forms of help if they need it for their health. Many of us in the lived experience space or that lens, maybe we had a bad experience going to a GP or another health professional in the past because weight was brought up and maybe it was a very negative conversation. And then there's sort of a resistance to go next time in the future. So that very much is a theme that comes up with many lived experience folks that we've talked to and worked with. And, the stigma itself is, people are like, okay, so the stigma is happening, but, how does that actually impact the individual? Well, it's very harmful in that it does start to produce more physical and mental health consequences as a result, right? You're probably not going to go to the doctor or your other healthcare professional maybe as you would if that wasn't the case. We've also seen that there's been an increase of things like depression and anxiety as well. We've also seen that there could be some disordered eating that happens as a result of that and decreased self-esteem. So when you really look at it, it starts to permeate all of society, right? It's in our media, it's in the healthcare, it's in the family, it's in the school, and it's in our employment as well. So really for us, it's all about the education and the science and the reality of obesity, really addressing that there's many complexities going on. And we can't talk about obesity without talking about weight stigma. So for us, that's sort of the key message and why we're here today.
Yeah, absolutely. And this information was not new to me when I was led towards your e-learning. I'm going to segue into the e-learning a bit earlier than I planned. But it was so well crafted and presented in a way that I can now share it with my team as well. And what I'm talking about here, just to our listeners, is amongst the collaboration when we were introduced to each other, a mutual colleague was recommending that I actually look into the e-learning module that the Obesity Collective had created because I was seeking more opportunity to upskill. I knew that things like language, the space that we operated in, the techniques we used, and a whole host of other things were going to influence a person's experience. And I didn't know where to start. And this module, which I cannot recommend more highly, and I'll definitely pop the link on our show notes as well to encourage everyone to look at. It's super easy to digest and do in your own time. And ultimately, it's designed to provide health professionals with the tools and the tips to enhance their space and make sure it is a service for everybody that can help reduce some of that stigma and really understand, like you said, the complexity that is obesity. This old notion of calories in, calories out is just such rubbish, and it still permeates society and common language. Everyone has room for improvement, and all health professionals should be constantly upskilling. But there are some, health professionals we might hear or see that terminology used more, and you're trying to undo almost the hard work of someone else who has really created a really negative environment for someone. So this e-learning module, I take it was one of the techniques that the collective came about to try to spread the word?
Yes, 100%. And when we built eLearn, we actually did it in collaboration with other health professionals, GPs, nurses, dietitians, people within stigma, people within research, lived experience. So we very much took a very well-rounded approach to designing this because we wanted to have people from various aspects in this topic having an input and say on this. It can't just be myself or other people at the collective just having one input on this. It really was co-designed with a variety of perspectives in mind. And for us, we wanted to make sure that the eLearn highlighted a few different things. Obviously, the first one being the many complex drivers of obesity. And there are many, right? It's, as we've said, it's not just calories in, calories out, which is interesting that you brought up because I was just listening to a podcast where Dr. Terry Lynn South she's a chairperson with the RSAGP, and she's also one of the faces on our eLearn in the beginning of the eLearn, which you probably saw. So she very much champions our message, and she's a collective member. And she said the same thing on a podcast recently that, when she was training in the beginning, it was very much a message of calories in, calories out. So, and things have changed since then. And that's, I think, for me, working more in the Eastern health perspective in yoga, we're seeing that even changing in yoga. Yoga's evolving like everything else, right? And Western health is no different. I think it needs to change, and we need to kind of change our perspectives on that. So we address the many complex drivers of obesity, but we also look at the experience of people with obesity and those general misconceptions, right? And there's a lot of misconceptions that we need to talk about because we need to have that conversation. And sometimes learners aren't even aware that they have stigma. And we're not here to say, hey, you're bad, you have stigma. No, it's about just saying, hey, is this something that you're aware of? Identify it in yourself, right? Because this is all about becoming better healthcare professionals, right? that's
Absolutely.
really what it is. We also, and you've probably noticed this in the e-learn, we look at the experience of healthcare professionals as well, trying to better support people with obesity and health. And a recognition of the barriers to the healthcare system, which you and I know as being patients in the healthcare system and sort of working in the healthcare system, there are definitely barriers that exist, and we address those, and we acknowledge that that's something that's going to be ongoing and is a work in progress, right? So the need for this training overall, like I said, it's very much in response to patients, nurses, and other GPs sort of saying to us, hey, we need more training and support on this topic. We want to better support our patients, but we need to understand the lived experience of the individual or the patient, and we need to understand the complexities that contribute to obesity so that we can change the way that we're providing care for these individuals, because that's important. And what I found in general, GPs, nurses, and other health professionals, they do want to change. They do want to have a stronger and better practice. So this is about making it accessible for them to do that very thing. Because I think it's been a topic that maybe I wouldn't say maybe it's overly attractive subject matter at times for areas of health, right? It's not as flashy, but it's an area in which we need to talk about more and get more educated on as a greater society and as healthcare professionals.
Yeah, absolutely. And particularly as you mentioned as well, it might be the beginning of a whole host of other chronic conditions if that then becomes a really negative experience, which permeates and, exacerbates the spiral of other comorbidities coming along. So those working in the healthcare system, ultimately their primary goal is to help people. It's really awesome to hear that so many are keen to take on, join the e-learning module and take on the learning and start implementing it into practice as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this was one of the first modules that you brought out, is that correct?
Yes, it is. It was one of the first modules we brought out. And, one thing we find really interesting with this module is you probably noticed in the course that we've also inserted a section that you can participate in as a learner or not. It's up to you. We don't make it mandatory, but we're actually having you respond to sort of stigma response questions, which you probably notice. You're nodding your head for the viewers that can't see us because it's not visual, obviously. And what we're doing with that information, again, this is completely, you can opt into this or not. We're actually taking those responses and sharing them with our research team because we're studying stigma around it, which is really, really fascinating. And again, like I said, we can't talk about obesity unless we understand stigma. And for us, it's important to sort of show the evidence that, there is stigma that exists, right? Because a lot of people within sort of a society in the medical community will want to know, well, is there evidence of stigma and that it exists? Yes, there is. And here we can point to it right here. So that's a really exciting aspect for us as well. And who knows, in the future, we look to maybe build more e-learn courses as we go along here. We were really proud of this e-learn in particular. I don't know if you noticed, but not only did we have support with New South Wales Health to build this e-learn, but we also recently have received a few endorsements of the e-learn as well from organizations such as APNA, ACRM, and the ANMF, which is really exciting. Those are very nurse-related membership bodies, but they've helped to share with their members, which is a lot of different people across the country, which has been amazing to have for the collective. So.
Absolutely. And in terms of, I suppose, scope and other ways of sharing the knowledge and trying to essentially generate that collective action amongst the Australian society and beyond. What other things do you do at the collective? What else does the collective do to spread the word?
Yeah, so we do a variety of different things. You'll see us in the space of doing advocacy within the government, which is not something I personally have been doing, but Tiffany Petrie, who's a director currently at the collective, has been doing that. And we're also in the space of just having new conversations with other organizations as well, where we can begin to get out the word about what we do and sharing the resources and tools that we have. I'm not sure if I specified earlier, but we are a registered charity. So for us, it's just about sharing all these free resources that we have. It's for us, if we can begin to make a shift and a change with sort of the actions that we take around obesity all across our society, then that's where things can become really impactful for us. And in particular, I don't know if you had a chance to visit, but on our website, we have a section called the Actions Hub. And for those of you that are not sure what the website is, that's the Obesity Collective .org.au. And we have this area on our site in particular called the Actions Hub. And this is where we've developed a range of actions and resources to help reduce the negative impacts of obesity. So whether you're acting on behalf of yourself or your organization or your community, there are ways that we've shared with the learner that they can help reduce the impact of stigma and obesity and create change in society. People want to know what they can do to make a difference on this topic, right? And we've responded in that way and said, here you go. Here are some resources. Here are some things to consider for yourself, because obesity isn't just a personal problem, right? It's all across sort of the systems of our lives, right? We see it having an impact on our food system. We see it within government. We see it within the schools, which is massive, right? We see it within, if you go to a corporate office, we're seeing that there are some spaces that are not equipped to promote a more healthier, friendly environment in that respect. So there's still lots of change that needs to go on. And I think for us, we're like water here at this organization. We very much just try to flow and make impact wherever we can. So whether that be through advocacy, working with lived experience folks and helping to give them a voice, touching on sort of new audiences and new spaces where we can make an impact. For us, we're pretty open-minded for the most part of where we can go. And we're a very small and mighty team. So, and we operate very lean, which has been incredibly inspiring, I think, especially from my experience coming from big corporations, working in corporate in the past, and now coming to a very, very small team, and just seeing the impact that it's been able to make has been really fascinating, and it's really rewarding.
Small but mighty for sure. The impact, I feel that even I can, I don't own the business. I'm an employee here. We're all very much valued team members and can have our say. And I'm very lucky to work in an environment like that. But like you said, that Action Hub creates resources and tools that a person can be a drop in the ocean and have really widespread effect. And that's what I think really excites me, because it's such tangible, simple tools and resources that we can implement into daily lives, into conversation, into better language with our friends and family, right through to the professional space. And I'm really excited to see Australia being the forefront of this, and that continue to permeate, beyond the borders and the oceans that surround Australia. You mentioned before as well, talking about the other spaces that you do advocacy in. If we're looking at an exercise physiologist, so we'll bring it back, I suppose, to the e-learn particularly. If you're an exercise physiologist listening to this, or a healthcare professional, obviously step one would be to do the e-learn, because then you get all the content there.
For sure.
Also, no shortage of resources, like you mentioned. In the e-learn itself, we've got links to websites and resources everywhere, which I now have tabbed in my website folder up above me. But what are some nice practical takeaways that some people can take even just from today's podcast that we can start implementing in practice for someone who's working with people with obesity?
Hey, thanks for taking the time to listen to our podcast. We hope you're learning a lot in this particular episode. Just a shout out to our sponsor, HGG Performance, which provide very high quality, innovative gym equipment and custom fit outs to enable you to pivot your potential and smash your performance and rehab goals. They are world renowned for their innovative creations in the gym accessory space, including the best-selling ISO Tib LT, Tib Bar, Wrist Axe, and Nordic Bar. And I got to say, we're using some of these equipment in our clinic and finding some great results. Used by professional sports teams, athletes, and coaches worldwide, as well as the military, health practitioners, and apparently even Joe Rogan uses their gear. HTG is a proudly Aussie-owned company that makes all their gym equipment at their Gold Coast HQ. And our partnership with them, we are stoked to offer you 10% discount on any product with the code BODYTRACK10, so you can experience what all the hype is about yourself. So jump over to their website, go to the checkout, punch in the code of BODYTRACK10 to get 10% off on any of their great innovative gym equipment, and start using today. Thanks very much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very good question. And, I'm just thinking back to something I developed recently for Yoga Australia. We did a little collaboration with them where we created a sort of a more tailored module for yoga teachers understanding the same topic, obesity, and how they can better be more inclusive with their teachings and make the environment more accessible. And I think some of that would translate over very nicely to exercise physiologists. So most importantly, first, make sure that the space is set up in a way that is has lots of space for people to move, stretch, exercise. And I think that's absolutely important. I think, Nicole, you're probably you're aware of that already. Having a good amount of space in the room to work with clients and patients is very, very important. So have the space set up in a way where people don't feel like they're sort of crammed in. They have space to move and stretch and move their body and exercise. I think that's important. Making sure also that, say, if you have a waiting room or a reception area, if you have size-friendly chairs or benches, that would be really, really handy to have. And it makes your patients just feel that much more comfortable when they come to see you, of all sizes, And this is coming from perspectives that we've heard from where even if someone is not considered obese, they just feel much safer and more comfortable in size-friendly furniture, right? Where they know the chair is not going to break or they're going to hurt themselves. And that even just comes down to a health and safety sort of aspect as well. That's just absolutely important. So also making sure, if you can, your entrances are accessible as well and size friendly. Can the patient get in to your space or to your practice with ease? Is there going to be any trouble for them to get in the door? So I think that's important to address. And maybe even consider, is there stairs going up to your practice as well? And, what could you do to, sort of minimize any troubles getting up the stairs if possible? We recognize some things are going to be out of your control. These are just things for you to think about at the end of the day.
Just adding on to that as well, sorry to interrupt.
No worries.
Even with like this, we're looking at a space of one aspect of inclusivity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the other part of it too is making these changes in a space that might be more, led to support those living with obesity are also going to really service people who might have difficulty with access because of another disability. Might be in a wheelchair, many other reasons why someone might have difficulty accessing a clinic or a space. These small changes where possible, like you said, understandable that not everyone can do it. You're making your clinic or your space more accessible to everybody, which again, it gives me goosebumps. It's so simple, but it can something that can really positively influence a person's experience with you and in the healthcare system.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's 100% true. Another thing I think would be really important, I'm just sort of thinking about the tools or the objects that you might use to work with your patients. If they are brought in a way where they're pretty size friendly for all to use. I'm not sure if exercise physiologists would use yoga blocks and things, but if you do, making sure that they're really firm, they're sturdy, making sure they're nice wide blocks, for instance, or other sorts of devices. If you're using foam rollers, is there a way to get a variety of different sizes of foam rollers that, might better help the patient in this case? It's been a while since I've been to physio, so I'm just trying to picture the physio clinic in my mind.
There's lots of things we have in the gym and the clinic. I mean, everyone's clinics look different as well, right? So we have a private clinic space. I mean, ours probably typically from the outset kind of looks a little bit like a gym. We have a lot of free weights, but I know a lot of the things that we're looking at as well is making sure that all of the benches and the areas that, again, one person sits on or is all rated, so they're all safe for all people of all sizes to, one, access, but to use. like you said, which comes back to an OH&S safety standpoint, that the equipment is rated for all people to access and use. I think one of the ones I picked up as well was things like blood pressure cuffs. So making sure that that's a standard norm, that you've got varieties of sizes, scales, if it's relevant. To be honest, we don't really use them that much at all. And you can probably allude or share a little bit more on this topic if you want to as well. But even having the understanding or the confidence as well, particularly if you're getting a referral from perhaps a GP where Medicare is funded and the condition listed might be obesity. There might be the only condition, there might be other ones that, back in the day, we were probably taught, well, the first thing you do would be a weight measure, right? Whereas I'm really pleased to, see now that doesn't happen. It's very much more so a case of almost asking permission first. Is that something that's you feel is valuable or you want part of it? How do you want to proceed in this space? And making sure someone feels even comfortable first talking about it before this assumption is made that is part of a necessary objective measure, particularly when we know there's so many other measures of health that are far more influential, particularly with exercise, and more meaningful to somebody. But yeah, feel free to share your thoughts on that part.
Yeah, I think, when you're, and hopefully I answer your question here. And if I don't, just go ahead and tell me no. I think, when the first thing that I think many healthcare professionals, maybe in this case, exercise physiologists, I'll come in with a yoga lens at this, is be completely present in the moment as much as you can when you're working with your client. And if you're having trouble being present in the moment, just take a nice, deep, calming breath just to center yourself, to get into your body, and then begin to ask open-ended questions and really listen to your client and hear what it is they're here for, what their goals are, what their needs are, and put that at the forefront. And as much as you can, really set aside your misconceptions, your needs, what you think is good for the patient aside as much as possible, and make what they need. So as long as it's reasonable and aligns with the prescriptive plan that you have for that individual, really try to set those aside as much as possible. Listening, active listening, asking open-ended questions, approaching the topic of weight and obesity in a very gentle, sensitive manner. If they want to bring it up, if the individual wants to talk about it and bring it up, listen to it and just say, that's really interesting. Tell me if you're comfortable sharing more. Tell me a little bit more about that, right? Just that little opening can allow more information to come in, and that individual feels really safe. But allow them as much as possible to sort of guide and direct that topic with them. If that comes up, or if that's something that maybe you as a professional are observing, right? For instance, and we understand as sort of, movement professionals, and we can see that, sometimes if the body is a little heavier, that can place pressure on joints and things, right? And so that might be the case. We see that visually, but maybe the individual isn't experiencing that, right? So don't go in and say, oh, your joints must be sore and painful, because of the extra weight. Don't go and say that. If the individual wants to go ahead and talk about that, then you have permission to then go ahead and speak on that aspect, right? Just listen as much as possible. Let them guide the conversation, and give them a plan that is going to be prescriptive for their needs. Don't make it about weight loss if you can, unless maybe that's their goal, which is absolutely fine. It is absolutely fine that the individual, and this is just the individual, wants that for themselves. We're not saying no to weight loss, no. And we're not saying do weight loss. We're saying that this needs to be conversations that you have with your healthcare professional. Whatever it is you're working on, you need to have that conversation with them. So, I think some other things that are important for exercise physiologists to maybe sort of take away, and this is something that I share with yoga teachers and other professionals as well, is try to exercise your compassion muscle as much as possible. Compassion isn't something that's we're sort of born with. It's not always innate to many people. You can learn it, but it takes time. So if you're very much someone that's focused on sort of the processes and the procedures of things, maybe you're heavy focus on the science. Make sure you're also taking time to exercise your compassion muscle, because that really is missing in a lot of situations where lived experience folks are interacting with their healthcare providers. Really, they're coming in very vulnerable, and if you can come in with just a bit more with a compassion and a kindness, you've just made that individual's day. I can speak on my perspective, lived experience wise. I've was in a larger body at the time, and I had torn my ACL and ripped my meniscus in my right knee. And one thing that I loved about the physio and surgery experience is not once in that process was my weight made an issue. They just said, no, like, you must be in a lot of pain. And I said, yes, I am. And let's get you moving. Let's get you feeling better. Right. So it was not about getting the weight down. It was just about, let's increase your mobility. Let's get that repaired. You're going to be fine. You're in safe hands. And they didn't make it about that. But it's come to my attention recently that there are some people that will go to the GP or go to physio, and that is talked about. Oh, you got to get the weight down so that we can do the surgery on your knee and what have you. So I just find that very interesting. It's people have different experiences. I've had a very positive experience with physio and exercise physiology, which is great. But I think that's sort of an important takeaway for exercise physiologists to factor in, is that compassion, open-ended questions, being totally present in the moment if you can. There's a lot going on in the clinic space, right? So it's probably pretty hard at times to be totally centered and present as much as possible. So those are sort of some little things that you can do to just kind of center yourself.
I love it. It's so good. And I think it's, again, these are tools, tips, resources that are going to continue to make you a better healthcare provider to so many other people as well. Active listening is an incredible skill. And again, not something that everyone is good at, and it does need to be practiced to be present. And the use of spaces like consult rooms, I feel like, are really good to have that, particularly in an initial consult where most people will have that initial, or perhaps you might, have a client who is still warming up and having that start in the consult room. So let's have a chat in the consult room first before we get out to the floor, to give yourself some of that privacy and space to unwind, or open with questions that they might feel more comfortable talking to you about in the comfort of a closed space as well. So it's remembering to use spaces. And sometimes we might go for a walk outside. We're blessed to have a field right out on our back doorstep. So sometimes the warm up is a walk around the field and a catch up on, how the day has been or what's been going on for them, how they've been finding their movement, anything that's changed. So I love that breath, that use of active listening, and really being present to ultimately be a practitioner that is doing client-centered care, which will, work wonders for so many health professionals and really enhance everyone's skills.
Absolutely. And, one thing I just thought of too, that we'll often share with GPs and nurses, if you are currently doing things like weighing patients, for instance, or clients, whatever terminology you use, I use them interchangeably. If you have a space that's private and set off to the side for that individual, so that they can be weighed in a comfortable private setting, that's something we recommend as well. That would be ideal. I'm not sure if that's something that exercise physiologists do. I can't recall, but we've heard from lived experience folks that that's really important. And sometimes you'll go to a GP or even a hospital, and they're weighing you out in the middle of the hallway with people walking by back and forth.
Goodness.
And it's very confronting. I've had that happen to me personally, and it's shocking. You're sort of like, oh my God, you feel very, very vulnerable in that moment. And so if we can reduce those feelings of vulnerability as much as possible in these sort of, moments, all the better. Just making sure that the person feels 100% comfortable to be there, to work with you in this space. It's all about, even though we're not all yoga professionals, we are, as health professionals, there to hold safe space.
Mm-hmm.
It applies to all of us, whether we're exercise physiologists or GPs or nurses or yoga teachers. We're there to hold safe space for people, and we're there to have a strong therapeutic relationship with our patient, with our client. So that has to be number one.
Yeah, I couldn't summarize it more perfectly. It really excites me, this space, and I'm really pleased to see the growth, even since I've been an exercise physiologist the last now 7+ years. To see the growth in space from when I was at university and what I was probably taught then, and those before me, and then the students we have coming through now, and seeing the growth in space. And now it's so much less prescriptive, not the sort of X number of reps equals certain outcome, right? We're really looking at that client-centered care. It is becoming much more the norm in how we base our treatment and our interventions. And it's only creating better quality practitioners, better quality outcomes, long-term clients who become part of our community for forever, where exercise becomes a long-term part of their life too, because all of a sudden it's not just exercise to achieve what was, a strength or fitness outcome back then. Now looking at this whole movement space, it's enhancing mental health. It's a safe space where they feel comfortable. It's a network, it's a community. And I'm really looking forward to continuing to enhance our space at BodyTrack, and hopefully to see, these effects of the collective and other amazing groups that are working on inclusive practices to make movement, particularly and healthcare, far more accessible to all people of all shapes and sizes, to better the health of Australia and beyond.
Absolutely. Look, meet your patient, your client where they're at, and the rest will follow, right? Remember, let them lead and let them sort of guide the journey on this, and that's going to produce the success. That's also going to build the confidence in them, right? And again, keeping the body safe, keeping the safe space as well, and how you speak. There's an element of sort of non-violent and safe language as well. That all of that combined together is just going to give just a wonderful and positive experience for the people that come into your doors and work with you. I found personally, as lived experience, but also providing yoga as well as a medicine, how important it is to make their goals the forefront, right? And just meet them where they're at, and don't look at it. I would sort of just remind yourself that progress it's not linear, right? And for those of us that can't see what I'm doing with my hand right now, one moment it's up and then it's down and then it's in between and it's all the rest. So progress is not linear, and don't think of it that way for the person that you're working with. It's going to be this winding journey for that person, and just accept that. And the more you can accept that, the more you'll probably enjoy your practice in the space
Absolutely.
that you work in. And the better outcomes you're probably going to have with the person that you help as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, so true. Amazing. Well, I was going to get you to do like a key takeaway, but I feel like you just summarized the end there perfectly anyway.
Oh, perfect.
I think some of my key pointers for those listening would be really to check out the e-learning module, which I'll put the link onto the show notes for. And I know you also mentioned to the yoga training tool now as well. So if we have any exercise physiologists or those who are listening who do teach yoga or are training in the yoga space or interested in how we might apply some of these principles specifically to the yoga space, I think that'll be a really valuable module as well, which I'll link in.
And that one is with Yoga Australia. So if there are any exercise physiologists that are yoga teachers and are members with Yoga Australia or looking to become one, highly encourage you to do it. Yoga Australia is a great membership body, and they do provide a lot of resources and tools. And in fact, what we're seeing with Yoga Australia also is that they're trying to blend all of these different areas of health and wellness knowledge together so that we can all be on the same page. Exercise physiologists and yoga teachers, we're sort of speaking the same talk to a degree. So if you're a member with them, go ahead and check out our training that we did for them recently. We'll be there as well.
Amazing. And I'm excited. I'm hoping ESSA, our governing body, will get on board too. I can't see, why they wouldn't. So I'll have to petition some space that way as well, and hopefully get them on an endorsement too.
That was the ESSA?
Yeah, ESSA, Exercise Sports Science Australia.
Yes, I'm actually in conversation with them right now,
Yes.
so stay tuned.
Fantastic. It doesn't, I mean, they're brilliant. So
Yeah.
that'd be great to see it, spread even further. So
Yes.
thank
Stay
you.
tuned. Stay tuned.
Yes, I'm excited. Thank you so much for joining me today, Monica. It has been a wonderful chat. We could have spoken for hours, but I got to let you go.
Thanks,
but
Nicole.
I look forward to seeing more of the work you do, and really hoping that this podcast, spreads widely as well. And if you're listening to this and you feel like it might be valuable for a workmate, or there's things from this that you're really loving, please share it with colleagues or friends, so we can keep spreading the word and collectively generate some action positively around Australia.
Excellent. Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, so remember to share, like, or follow to keep updated with all our podcasts and educational resources.